So it's half-time in the Six Nations Championship. Well, if you can get half-time in a 5-round championship. Here's the state of play, and I want to talk about all the teams, where I think they're at, and some interesting points around them. And I'd love to know your thoughts, of course. So starting with the leaders, France, they're sitting pretty. 3 wins out of 3, 14 points, on course for the Grand Slam, of course. But 1 loss, and they could be in trouble, because you can see Ireland there have that extra bonus point. And due to that massive win over Italy, due to that double red card, single red card thing, they've got superior points difference at the moment. So that's nicely set up. Then England chasing behind. Scotland and Wales, yes, they're out of it. And Italy, well, we'll come to them. Anyway, France, definitely, I would say, the most dangerous all-round looking team in attack and defence. Just so destructive. And they look really balanced. That's what I like about this French team. Not that they're perfect, as in they play, but they've got that balance of players. Big guys, quick guys, athletic guys. Eddie Jones, take note. But, I mean, just take the second rows, for example. Massive Willemse, and then the athletic Woki. Or the centres, you got the bashing Dante, and then the all-rounder of Fiku. Or the front row, by Marchand, Antonio. You've got a bit of everything. That's what I like about any rugby team that has the balance to play any way. And of course, they have some of the best players in the world. Antoine Dupont, of course. Villiers and Fiku, I think, have really stood out. They still make errors, for sure. But that classic French brain fart, if you like, where they do something disastrous, seems to be a lot rarer. Dare I say, now it's more likely you know roughly the France you're going to get, rather than the old saying when you didn't know which one would turn up. So that's a massive change, absolutely. Plus that big away win to Scotland showed they can win away, not just win, no, slightly, but absolutely smash a team away from home, which is brilliant. And also remember, in the World Cup, they're at home the whole time, so it's even better for them. They've shown they're lethal and they punish loose play. They don't have to just build loads and loads of phases to get scores. They can literally score from anywhere. And if it all goes wrong and they want to play simple, they've got the heavy artillery, they've got the kicking game to play tight or just whack it one out if they want to. And I love that flexibility. They are basically ready for this World Cup, just need a bit of fine-tuning, get everyone fit, and I think it's exactly where they want to be. The Grand Slam is there for the taking, it's in their hands, and I think at the moment they're favourites to get it. Now on to second place Ireland, and it's a bit weird because they're off the back of that very strange game against Italy where that red card really spoilt it and they went down to 13 players did Italy. So hard to really see how some of the new players stepped up there, but still a useful training run, I guess. They finish with England away, then Scotland at home. Now obviously that away trip's going to be the hardest, playing away always is. England are a bit of an enigma at the moment, so they could be good, they could be poor. I think Ireland are favourites, in my book anyway, to win that one away. And if they do, that's another massive tick in their preparation for the World Cup. What I've liked most about Ireland, which I liked in the autumn as well, is how joined up they are in attack and defence, and they're just so comfortable in their own skin. They know their new identity, they know their roles, and they can really relax and just play rugby within it, which is the sign of a team near the top, to be honest. And I think they are near the top of what they can do, which is great to see. Players of note, well, Gibson Park, who'd have thought a few years ago he would be perfect as the number one choice for Ireland. Just brilliant at getting the ball away quickly, and he's a player that epitomises feeling comfortable in his own game, which helps so much. I always mention Josh van der Fleer, who's just taken his game to another level. Absolutely fantastic. And then the magic pairing of Porter and Furlong, almost a perfect prop combination. So some really good players in there, in and amongst the fantastic systems. One area I think they could do with practicing is something I mentioned that France probably have in the locker, maybe Ireland don't, is that real slow game, that kicking game, if they need to, if it's a wet day or things are getting a little bit tight. I think they could actually do with deliberately practicing that at some point. Maybe not in the Six Nations, maybe in the summer, I don't know. But Ireland are there waiting for France to slip up. Then England, sitting third at the moment. but two very hard games to finish on. Ireland and France, the two best teams. Ireland at least are at home, and then it's France away. So they could easily lose both of those and have a really bad Six Nations, or win one or even both and turn it all around. So very much in the balance for England. It's hard to know what to make of them. There's some good stuff in there for sure, and it's important to say that. There's definitely some good attacks, and players are on form. But there's also some weaknesses and some real vulnerability. They melted completely against a Welsh onslaught in that second half at the weekend. And it does seem that Eddie Jones seems to be a little bit of a weakness as well. I know some of you guys still think he's got an overall plan. I'm not so sure at the moment. I think he's been quite reactive recently. Last year he was going back to his old favourites, the Vunipolas. It didn't work, so he changed his mind. Then Farrell's gone injured, so he's changed his mind. And he has settled on a faster game, attacking game, but it's really not coming together just yet. Anyway, like I said though, if England beat Ireland at Twickenham, that's a really good feather in their cap. Yes, they're at home. That's the sort of game in the past they would hope to win, but Ireland playing so well, so that's a biggie. And then if they get even close to France away, it will be impressive. If they manage to win it, they'll have turned it around completely, but France are massive favourites there. That's going to be very, very difficult. So really in the balance for England. On to players, there's definitely lots of decisions to make, and I'll leave most of that chat to another video. Randall, should he start? Should Youngs come back in? Should Youngs be in at all? Should we really be having Quirk and Van Portfoli fighting out with Randall there? Dombrandt, at least, I think has started to fulfil his role as number 8. I think he could have come into the team a year earlier, to be honest, but he's starting to show his qualities. Smith is playing very well. I wouldn't go over the top with him at the moment. He's still very young in his career, but some really nice touches. Just needs to relax into his game. Slade in the centres is playing really well, but he's kind of swimming in a sea of clones, if you like. So many ball players, medium-sized ball players, just seems a little bit lost. England lacking a bit of identity, I think, overall, but again, I'll come to that in other videos. Now, Scotland went into this championship with a lot of hope, and they really slipped up by not showing up against Wales, not putting in a decent performance at all. And now they've got absolutely thumped against France, even though they were in it at half-time for sure. They could have been ahead, and then they completely lost it. So they're going to be pretty crestfallen. I wonder how they'll respond just psychologically. They do have Italy next, which will help. I think Italy will be not targeting Scotland as such, but just targeting this game, their last one at home. They've had a poor performance so far, so I think they're probably going to be at their most intense. So that's a big game for Scotland, even though I think they should win. Will we see change arounds in personnel? There's certainly a few question marks. I mean, the excellent Chris Harris has been very quiet in this Six Nations for a Lions centre. Russell, obviously that debate goes on, has absolute genius in his locker, but then sometimes can look low effort, low fight, a little bit uninterested, which certainly rubs people up the wrong way. The forwards, I think, struggle a bit at times, although great to see the emergence of Rory Darsh, who looks an absolute world beater in the making. So loads of questions for Scotland there. Like I said, they've got a good chance to get back on the horse against Italy, and then that final game against Ireland away will probably decide how they read this Six Nations, if it's an okay one or a poor one. I'm not sure they can get it back to a good one so far, considering they're out of the Six Nations with some disappointing losses. One thing I think they need to work on is a bit more tactical control sometimes, a little bit less freewheeling. They gave France some good counter-attack opportunities, didn't try and squeeze them particularly, play a territory game. They need to mix it up. Does Russell do that? Will he do that? I don't know. Anyway, like I said, Italy should be good, get back on the horse, and then against Ireland, that'll be their big test. Now on to Wales, and this is a team who have actually steadily improved on quite a smooth curve, to be honest. Definitely their best game against England in the second half. They'll be gutted that they really only showed up in that second half, because they had England on the ropes big time, but they run out of time. But, you've got to start fast, which England did, even though they were messy in that first half as well. Unfortunately, though, their nice smooth curve up might be a little bit jolted, because it's a big jump up to try and beat France. Even though they are at home, that'll be interesting. No, their Six Nations is over, but they'll give that one a big crack. The French juggernaut, can it be stopped? I don't know. It looks a bit too good. Again, away from home, they showed they can do it last week. Even with Faletau back, it could be a long shot, but he was a big boost. Amazing that he just played the whole game, first game back. They could do with a few more players back, but anyway, doesn't look like that's going to happen. But in the future, going up to the World Cup, if they can get Tipperick back, Navidi, North, Alan Wynne-Jones, we really could be seeing a much improved Wales. And considering they're starting off on probably a decent base now anyway, that could be a huge difference going into the World Cup. Now let's go on to Italy finally. And, well, to be honest, I wasn't expecting them to win a game in this Six Nations, but I was expecting a bit more. We saw flashes against France at the beginning, and it's really gone downhill. And now I know that red card killed them, so they haven't really shown what they can do yet, I don't think. Against Scotland, like I said, this is it. This is their huge performance they need. If they're poor against Scotland, then I think Italy have gone backwards in this Six Nations when many were expecting them to get better and better. They do have some good players, definitely, but I don't think they've got enough good players. 1 to 23, they're just not as good as their opposition, which is a bit of a shame. They've got some good shapes on them, but don't really have the firepower to break down the big boys even when they get into good attacking shape. So that Scottish game at home, if they don't win, they need a big performance. Then they travel to away. Can they do something in these last two games? They really need to, or it will be another incredibly disappointing Six Nations for Italy, and the same questions will come back up. Anyway, guys, that's my assessment of our kind of half-time report. Let me know if you disagree or agree with any of those, and who you think is going to win the Six Nations, how you think the last two games are going to go, and I'll catch you next time.